Okay, so this tutorial is going to give us an introduction to InDesign. We're going to go through placing of text box and placing of images, doing a little bit of basic formatting, that is cropping and sort of scaling down images onto an image, and I'll show you guys how to set up a document and then publish this as a PDF. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create a new document. We're just going to hit OK because everything's in Picas right now. I'm going to turn off facing pages since we're going to be creating a board presentation for this. If you're doing a portfolio, though, you might do facing pages. So hit OK. And it's going to start us off by an 8.5 by 11. First thing we need to do is we need to edit our preferences and go to units and increments. And if we go to units and increments, once this thing pops up, we can change our units to a more familiar setting. If you use millimeters and centimeters, you can do that, or if you use inches, we can go ahead and do that. So we'll hit OK. All right, and then we can then go to File, Document Setup, and adjust our document size. So we'll go ahead. However wide, the plotters here are 36 inches tall, and then we can go ahead and figure out, we'll just start off with 48 inches, and if we end up needing more space than that, that's okay. All right, so Control plus and Control minus will zoom in and out, and InDesign is one of the few softwares in Adobe that if you have something selected and zoom in, it will zoom in on the object that you have selected. All right, so that's one of the nicer features about it. You automatically will start off with rulers. If you want to use guidelines to evenly space things, if you click in the ruler space, you can pull those guidelines in and out. And so if you select, if you're outside, actually I won't drop that one right there. If you pull this down, if I'm outside the page, it will go all the way across. If I'm inside the page, it'll only apply to that page. And that really is useful when you guys are developing spreads where you have a page and a page where you're like, as if somebody's opening a book. So I'll go ahead and I'm just going to drop a couple of these in here. And so that's going to be essentially how you're going to build this out. When you guys are setting this up, you will obviously have a margin, that is this border along the outside. You can adjust that if you have full bleed prints. But then you're going to have gutters in between your images, and so that you can set that up as an 1/8 of an inch gutter, and you can, if we zoom in, we can see that that's right in here. So we'll just click and grab. So we'll set that right at 13, and right at 13 and 1/8. I'm using a trackball, not the best mouse for this. All right, and so now we have an even gutter. Once you have drawn a gutter, you can zoom out, select both of those, and when it turns blue, hit Control-C, V, and then if we drag that out, we can move those things across, so we can start to really build this out. Okay. When we're going through this, we can do obviously text boxes. If you just press T, or you come over here onto the main toolbar and hit the T box, then you just draw this guy, and it's automatically going to draw that box. So if we select this here and move it over into that, it's automatically going to snap to those grid boxes. And if you never ever type in InDesign, use a word processor that has a good spell check on it. InDesign has a spell check. It's worth noting that it's very terrible, and it won't catch any grammatical errors that you guys have. But say if you're laying this out, we can come in here and we'll call this title, home, and I'm just going to go ahead and give this here. And then if we come over here and right click, we can fill the rest of this with placeholder text, and it's going to automatically just fill this up with Latin gibberish. And then we can come over here and adjust that. So maybe that's not quite the right size, but it'll automatically format based on whatever the last font size was rigged up at. Okay, so in this way, if you guys have multiple, say we have too much here, I'm going to just say, oh, this was too wide, and now I want to smash this in. We get this little plus symbol for our text, and so if we know that we're going to have more text somewhere else where that's going to pick up, and select that, we'll just draw that in. And if we hit this plus button, you see it, and then select the guy here, select the guy, and then click the plus, it will take and connect that text box to this. So when we come over here and extend this out, as this text fills in, it will automatically infill over there. So you guys can do spreads like that and adjust that. If you want to turn off and use H to go to the hand tool and pan over. Turn off these sort of blue boxes. If you hit Control H, that turns off your frame edges. Or if you go to View, Extras, Control H, Show or Hide Frame Edges. Okay. If you want to turn and toggle off your guides, if you hit Control semicolon, you can do that. If you hit Control apostrophe, that will turn on the grid for your document, and that's what you're actually snapping to when you're drawing stuff. All right. And then if you guys want to preview what this thing will look like, you go to View, Screen Mode, you can set this to Preview, and it'll show you what it would look like if you were to plot this out. Okay? Alright, and so I'm going to go ahead and just switch my view back to normal. And the next thing we're going to do is just show you guys how to place images. So if we hit Control D to place, it's under File, Place, and I'll scroll this over so you can see everything on my screen. So say I have something, we have Malia's project here. We just take this and dump that in. It will dump that in at the resolution relative to the pixels per inch for the image. So this is a 300 dpi image. For every inch, there's 300 pixels in there. And if we zoom in, we note that this thing looks kind of crappy. And that's not because the image itself is crappy. What InDesign is doing is it's referencing the file somewhere else in there, so we don't use up all of our RAM, and so that the software can continue to host a lot of different sets of content. So we can host vector images or very large images without running the CPU down. If we need to see what that looks like, though, if we right-click on that image, set the display performance to high quality, you can see what this actually looks like in the image. Okay. And so that becomes a way that you guys can start to figure out how it is you want to organize this stuff. So we'll just set this to typical now. And the other, if you want to globally change that, if you go to View, Display Performance, you can set that to high quality or whatever it is you're wanting to. And fast will give it just, let's see here, it's not doing what I expected it to do. We just set this to fast, yeah, because we already overwrote that. It'll just give you a massing for that. Okay. So right-click Display Performance, set that to typical. All right, and then so what you need to pay attention to when you guys are going through this is one, it's automatically going to crop. So this first little arrow here up at the top is going to give you the cropping tool. And so if we just come over here, it's going to just start to slice and dice that. And if we deselect, because if I turn off my frame edges and deselect, this is sort of what it's going to look like. I can add a border if I want. So just coming across the top with it selected, and now I have a light border. But say I come in here and I don't really want to adjust that. If I hover over the center of this image, see how it becomes a hand, I click on that, now it's showing the actual image inside the frame. And so this is where I can start to transform this, or one of the ways I can start to transform this. And so I can come over here and just toggle that on and then move that around. And then when I deselect, I can now move the entire thing around. Okay? It's important to note that if I move this in here, or if I move this around and then deselect, I have not moved the frame. Okay, so I'll just Control Z. So that's how you guys can crop, and then one of the ways you guys can transform. If I select it and say I want to just do a free transform, if you press E, or if you come over here and click on the toolbar over there, it'll enable you to do this, and you can do a scalar shift. You hold shift, it'll do it at a consistent proportion. If you really shift, it'll do it at whatever wonky thing you want it to be. So we'll hold shift and then we'll make that bigger, and you can see it gets bigger. Okay? Alright, and so that's going to be essentially all of the basics for what you guys are going to be doing in here. You guys are just going to be placing images and placing a little bit of text. Be thoughtful about your font. Make sure you're spell checking your stuff before you put it in anywhere. And then the last thing you guys are going to want to do is you're going to file, export this. And you're going to save this as an Adobe PDF for print. And nothing you are doing in here is actually saved until you produce the PDF, okay? And so that's going to become pretty critical. Because even though I have to save this in order to do a couple other things. Save as, it saves as an INDD file. And all that is that saving a reference file. So all of the files that are referenced are in there, but it's all specifically linking to locations on your hard drive. So if I select this image, that's actually a link, and the way I'll show you is if we go to our links toolbar over here next to our pages, we can say that it's linked Malia page 1 And so if we come in here, you can edit this in Photoshop if you want. If we reveal in Explorer, it will take us to the file location for that particular file. And so if we come in here and, I don't see Malia in here, there it is. If I delete this, or if I do any kind of editing to this, that will automatically update into the InDesign document because of the way that this gets referenced, okay? And so that becomes very critical that whatever machine you're working on, you have all the files in one location and you're not moving them around, okay? Once you have laid all this stuff out and you feel like this is all satisfactory, what you're going to do is you're going to do the file export, save it as a print to PDF, and then that will export that and it'll compress everything. What you can do then is to save all of your links and all of your files and all your formatting work in one location is to go and do a thing called packaging. So we take a package, and what this does is it'll copy all of the fonts, all of the links, everything that's on different locations on the hard drive and put it into one spot for us to use later. So if you guys are working off a thumb drive, you can go ahead and take that in there. And so we're just going to hit OK to package. And this would be instructions if you were going to hand this off to a printer, so you don't need to do anything with that. And then you're going to have to go and develop a folder. And so I'll go ahead into my documents and go to IAPD 307. And we'll call this test folder. If I can type. And then you can see it down here, it's going to copy the fonts. It's going to copy all the linked graphics. That'll include any and all types of graphics you have in here. And then it'll update that. And so then if we hit package, it's going to, warn us about copyrights on fonts. We're not doing anything commercial, so we'll be all right there. All right, and then if we come over here and go to our IOPD 307 folder, we should see our test folder. And what this has done is this has actually saved a new InDesign document. And this is now uses the links folder to reference all of our content. So if you were to come in here and save this, you could copy this. What I'd recommend you guys do is copy this folder onto the desktop of a machine, and then you can run it off the machine so you don't risk corrupting anything by running off of your thumb drive. And then you can, once you're done with it, you just move everything back into your jump drive. Now, in some cases, that may break your links, and that's to say your file gets moved. And so if I go into project documentation, let's find Malia's project again. So if we just, I'm just going to create a new folder. All right, and then we're just going to dump this in here. Now if we go back in InDesign, it automatically recognizes that question mark box. It means that our link is broken. Okay, and so in order to fix that, we have to find the image that's busted. In this case, it's obviously easy because the list is only one graphic, and then we can go ahead and relink it. And what that will do is it will take us to our file folder, and so we can go through here and project documentation, visiting professor, and so we find the folder that it's in now, and we select this. Now when we do this, if there are any other broken links, it will try and find them, search that entire folder for any other files that it might be missing. And so if you have all your files in one location after you've packaged, you only need to find that folder once. Okay, so then otherwise after that you should be good to go. All right, and you can see that now the question mark box has gone away and everything is good to go. And so then all you need to do then is go ahead and export once you have all your stuff laid out and everything spell checked and everything good to go. If for whatever reason the document size is not right, you can come over here and you need it to be wider. For whatever reason, you go to document setup and you can now customize the size of this. So we can increase this to say 56 and it'll continue to get wider and wider. Okay. All right, but that's a basic introduction into InDesign that should take you all the way through, give you everything you need to do, at least this board presentation.